Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamunatira Bonachari. Jamunatira Bonachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Giri Varadhari. Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jasura Nandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamunatira Bonachari. Jamunatira Bonachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki, go Premanandi. Jayo Vishnu Bhadava. Puri Bharaj Kajaj Ashoda Shri Shimad. His divine grace of Charanara Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Grantara srimadbhagavatam ki jai. Samveda Bhaktimni ki jai. Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jamal, before you sit down, maybe the closest one is in the front hall. Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, volume 1. I think there's one on the rack there. I may be referring to that.
Okay.
Hmm?
Keep going.
Okay. He just sprinkled some Bhagavatam dust on me so I could speak properly from his phone. It's a new app. Sprinkle it on your head and you can speak properly. Why, thank you, sir. Okay. So this morning, reading from the srimadbhagavatam, 4th canto, 12th chapter, text 44. This is Maitreya Muni speaking. He was one of the sages who asked Duryodhana not to go to war. I just heard that recently. He was one of the... Duryodhana was asked by so many people not to go to war. Vyasadeva, Maitreya, so many people. He just said, very stubborn. What was that? Offense personified? Prabhu says somewhere? Is that Duryodhana? Offense personified. How'd you like to have a name like that? Hey, what's your name, Prabhu? Offense personified. Hare Krishna. Keep my distance from you. Can't live with them. Those were the days. They gave the names. Straight shooters, right? Jata karma. Find out about the person's future, then give him a name. Like that. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I think this is Monday's vintage. Very good. It's a very good day for Bhagavatam class. Well, there's enough in there. But tomorrow someone will need. It'll be a little scant tomorrow. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskricham naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Maitreya uvacha etate vihitam sarvam yat prishtoham iha tvaya druvasyo dama yashashash charitam sammatam satam. Maitreya uvacha etate vihitam sarvam yat prishtoham iha tvaya durvasya dama yashashash charitam samhatam satam. Maitreya uvacha etate vihitam sarvam yat prishtoham iha tvaya durvasyo dama yashashash charitam sammatam satam. Anyone like to chant? Maitreya uvacha etate vihitam sarvam yat prishtoham iha tvaya durvasyo dama yashashash charitam sammatam satam. Maitreya uvacha etate vihitam sarvam yat prishtoham iha tvaya durvasyo dama yashashash charitam sammatam satam. Maitreya uvacha etate vihitam sarvam yat prishtoham iha tvaya durvasyo dama yashashash charitam sammatam satam. Maitreya uvacha etate vihitam sarvam yat prishtoham iha tvaya durvasyo dama yashashash charitam sammatam satam. That's it? Damodar, did you chant? Okay. Okay. Charidam samadam sudam. Synonyms. Oh, excuse me, go ahead. Maitreya vacha sarvam Charidam samadam sudam. Maitreya vacha. The great sage Maitreya said, Etat, this, te, unto you, abhihitam, described, sarvam, everything, yat, what, prishta aham, I was asked, iha, here, tvaya, by you, druvasya, of Dhruva Maharaj, Udama, greatly uplifting, Yashasha, whose reputation, Charitam, character, Sammatam, approved, Satam, by great devotees. Translation and purport. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, whatever you have asked from me about the great reputation and character of Dhruva Maharaj, I have explained to you in all detail. Great saintly persons and devotees very much like to hear about Dhruva Maharaj. Please repeat. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, whatever you have asked from me about the great reputation and character of Dhruva Maharaj, I have explained to you in all detail. Great saintly persons and devotees very much like to hear about Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj ki. Purport. Srimadbhagavatam means everything in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whether we hear the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord or we hear about the character, reputation, and activities of His devotees, they're all one and the same. Neophyte devotees simply try to understand the pastimes of the Lord and are not very interested in hearing about the activities of His devotees, but such discrimination should not be indulged in by any real devotee. Sometimes, less intelligent men try to hear about the rasa dance of Krishna and do not take care to hear about the other portions of Srimadbhagavatam, which they completely avoid. There are professional Bhagavat reciters who abruptly go to the Rasa Lila chapters of Srimadbhagavatam as if other portions of Srimadbhagavatam were useless. This kind of discrimination and abrupt adoption of the Rasa Lila pastimes of the Lord is not approved by the Acharyas. A sincere devotee should read every chapter and every word of Srimadbhagavatam, for the beginning verses describe that it is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literature. Devotees should not try to avoid even a word of Srimadbhagavatam. The great sage Maitreya therefore affirmed herein that the Bhagavatam is sammahatam satam, approved by great devotees. Om Gyan Timarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksulunminitam Dena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashali Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So by your good wishes, I'll try to say a few words. My dear Vidura, whatever you have asked for me about the great reputation and character of Dhruva Maharaj, I have explained to you in all detail. Great saintly persons and devotees very much like to hear about Dhruva Maharaj. There's two parts of the Bhagavatam that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enjoyed the most hearing about from Gadadhar Pandit. Do you know one of them? Dhruva Maharaj. And the other one? Prahlad Maharaj. And if my memory serves me right, the devotee who told me this said that 100 times he would have Gadadhar go through the story of Dhruva Maharaj, recite that section. Very much enjoyed hearing the story of the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj, Lord Nrsimhadev. Those are two of his favorite parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Prabhupada's saying here in the beginning that everything, Bhagavatam means everything in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you can't divide the Lord and his devotees. If you hear about the great devotees of the Lord, Krishna's going to be in there, right? Because they're inseparable. They're inseparable. But sometimes, neophyte devotees, they want to hear the latter portions of the Bhagavatam, and this is a great mistake. So what's being referred to here is getting ahead of ourselves. You hear that expression? I think you're getting ahead of yourself. That's a little dangerous, like that. You get ahead of yourself. And there's different sayings like that. So there's also, what is that? Angels fear to go. What is that? Fools rush in where angels fear to go. So over and over and over again, Srila Prabhupada in his books is warning, in his lectures, warning about this tendency to get ahead of ourselves in Krishna consciousness. Now, I don't know if it was Harisari or Shruti Kirti. One of them told the story that, in case they spent many years with Prabhupada, they said they never saw Prabhupada more angry at one particular time in Los Angeles, the Gopi Bhava Club. The devotees who were just reading about Rasa Leela and so on, and making a big thing about it, how they were very, very advanced, and the other parts of the books weren't that important. They were for the less advanced. Of the Gopi Bhava Club. You gave up your membership? So maybe after class you can say a little bit more on this. But the point is, they never saw Prabhupada more angry than when he was dealing with these devotees about this. It's such a serious thing, and Prabhupada's saying here over and over again that this is not approved by the Acharyas. The Acharyas do not approve of this. One thing just came to mind. There's an account of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur speaking at Radhakund, and instead of speaking about Rasa Leela, he was speaking from one of the Upanishads, and many of the residents, sadhus living there, walked away. They didn't want to attend because it was below them that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was speaking from the Upanishads there. But he did that specifically to show this particular thing. I want us to be very, very careful thinking that I am very, very advanced. These other things are for those who aren't so advanced. Now, Prabhupada says over and over again about the different cantos of the Bhagavatam that one has to go through them progressively. One has to go through them progressively, first canto, second canto. And even the description is given, they're related to different parts of the Lord's body. Was the first and second canto like the Lord's lotus feet. In fact, it's written somewhere that unless one is free from gross materialistic desires, sex desire, different desires like that, one shouldn't go beyond the second canto. Really? So in this way, a warning that one has to become purified. The understanding is that first we have to understand who Krishna is before we get to the 10th canto, otherwise we'll misunderstand. We'll misunderstand. Because Krishna in his pastimes, the Lord and his devotees, they're on a transcendental platform, and if we don't have the purity of heart and the transcendental vision and realization, we'll misunderstand. And when you misunderstand something, you have a tendency to commit some mistakes and some offenses. That's the point. One will think Krishna and his pastimes are mundane. the very thing which can get us out of this material world, because it says, by hearing the pastimes of the Lord, Krishna, especially, that's why Prabhupada translated the Krishna book with his commentary at a very early point in the movement, because he knew that it's there. If you hear Krishna's pastimes, his appearance and all his different activities, one's heart will be very, very quickly purified, and one will understand what it means to be Krishna conscious. But if one is thinking Krishna is an ordinary person, like that. Just I remember the one George Harrison concert I did. It was in on SanDiego. It was in like Providence. We all had our Krishna books, little blue Krishna books. We were doing that, and the trilogy, so doing outside the concert and so on. And met someone and handed him the Krishna book, Volume 1. He said, "Oh yeah, I got this before." He said, "I read it." He said, the meaning of the book is that we have to become like Radha and Krishna, right? That's what I got out of it. So I said, "No, sorry, I think you ought to get we could put Volume 2 or Bhagavad Gita or something." It's a complete misunderstanding. They read it and thought, "Oh, the perfect love couple," like that. I mean, love. So that's what it is. That's what this is all about. How to enjoy like Krishna, how to enjoy like Radharani. So they got it wrong, like that. So they didn't understand who Krishna is. Now, sometimes they say, "Why did Prabhupada translate the 10th canto, the Krishna book?" But it's with complete commentary, so we won't misunderstand. Otherwise, you misunderstand. And even, yeah. Go read it again. Come back next week. So, and we see, what is it called? Sahajiya? Now, what does that word mean? Easy. Very, very easy. Like that. Sahajiya. So much emotion and easy. That's the pitfall of the Sahajiyas. They take it very, very easy. And they imagine. Like that. Some even to the point that they're Radha and Krishna and they're enjoying. So I was listening to a class recently, Bir Krishna Maharaj was saying, sometimes in Vrindavan you see some men dressed up like women. And that's that group, they think they're gopis. Like that. So they don't do a very good job, he said. They don't have a little scruffy beard, and they should do a little better. Like that. But imagining that somehow or other it's Radha and Krishna. Or just like that Bhishikshena, is that isn't it? Bhishikshena? He said he was Mahavishnu, but somehow he's dancing with the gopis. Mahavishnu doesn't dance with the gopis, so he had that wrong. There's a detail. But he was, had so many well-to-do people and so on giving their daughters so he could dance with the gopis and all that. So people have, unfortunately, a big misunderstanding as far as who Radha and Krishna are, because they haven't taken the time to go through the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and understand first who Krishna is, and therefore they make all these mistakes, and these mistakes hurt their devotional service more than help their devotional service. Just like fire, if you get too close to fire, what happens? You get burned. You have to just the right distance. Well, like when you're cooking, you turn the heat up too high, there goes the kitri, there goes breakfast, there goes lunch, right? You got just the right amount of heat. You can't get too hot. So these things want us to be very, 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 very careful about. In fact, it says that about Krishna and the spiritual master. One can't get, it's like fire, not too far. If you're too far away, there's no benefit. If you're too close, you get burnt. Just the right distance. So one has to be very, very careful. Now, another thing I remember hearing recently was about Radha Kund. That's another example of getting ahead of ourselves. Because there's a verse, the last verse of the Nectar of Instruction. There's a beautiful verse about Radha Kund, and I will read that, the English translation. Now, you just finished classes on this recently, right?
Yes, we went through 8.
Okay. So here it is. This is the conclusion of the Nectar of Instruction. Of the many objects of favor, delight, and of all the lovable damsels of Brajabhumi, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love, and in every respect her divine Kunda is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. Undoubtedly, Radha Kunda is very rarely attained even by great devotees. Therefore, it is even more difficult for ordinary devotees to attain. If one simply bathes once within those holy waters, one's pure love of Krishna is fully aroused. So in here it's talking about living there in Radha Kund and regularly bathing, and one's how much spiritual advancement one can make. So then the question comes up, well, why shouldn't we just all move to Radha Kund? Just by living on the banks of Radha Kund and bathing daily, we will attain Krishna prema. Now the example is given, or the reason given, is that go back to verse 1. Yeah. Because you can't take advantage of verse 11 until you've completed the other steps. Now, does anyone who know what verse 1 is? Besides Dravida. What does that mean? Yes, one has to have complete control of the senses. It says a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So that's one of the qualifications of living at Radha Kund. One's sober, like that, and he's able to tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, anger, the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. And of course, then it goes on to the 6 symptoms favorable, the 6 things unfavorable, which destroy your devotional service. So one's fully engaged in the 6 favorable activities. One has given up everything unfavorable for devotional service. One knows how to associate with the devotees. One knows how to offer proper respect to devotees. So one has all of these qualifications. Then when one resides at Radha Kund, one can take full advantage and advance very, very quickly in devotional service. Otherwise, one can't appreciate the transcendental nature of these things. And an example of Radha Kund is there's a point where Prabhupada asked devotees, or told the devotees, not to bathe in Radha Kund. You know why? Because the devotees went there and they turned it into like an Olympic swimming pool. Just like swimming and diving and jumping, yoo-hoo! Like that, like a swimming hole or something. Western devotees, you know, they're just a little bit not appreciating how sacred it is. So Prabhupada just nixed devotees bathing in Radha Kund. But it doesn't mean one doesn't have proper understanding of how holy that place is. Can't bathe in Radha Kund and take some water on the head, or even bathe very, very properly. But when you don't understand it, better you don't. Better you don't. Because the tendency, what will happen, one will commit offenses. So it's very, very important lesson for us to be very, very careful that we don't get ahead of ourselves in devotional service, and that we, the preliminaries are always there, the basic. Prabhupada said routine work, you know, the routine work, getting up early, you know, following the regular principles, chanting our rounds, all these different things, taking prasadam, hearing and chanting, attending the morning program. If one starts thinking they're beyond these things, then there's a problem. Then there's a problem. Because even great souls, it says, they will follow all of the regulative principles, all their duties of their varna and ashram very, very carefully to set a good example. Not that they need to. These things are to help us advance in Krishna consciousness. One's very, very advanced. Of course, all of them help. It's not that, at what time going to Mangal Artik won't help me? At what time, you know, chanting and dancing won't help me? Well, what time taking prasadam won't help me? One of these things, I'm beyond these things. I don't need them anymore. That's must be very, very careful. So, so to be very, very, very careful. So the tendency, of course, that's why devotees are meek and humble. You ever heard that expression before? Devotees are meek and humble, like that. And devotees are never thinking, I'm very, very advanced. Devotees think, I have no Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was once asked, there's 2 things. The story goes like this. They asked Prabhupada once, maybe many times, what's the difference between him and us? You know what Prabhupada's answer was? The devotees. So Prabhupada, what's the difference between you and us? And Prabhupada said, I'll never fall down. And then the story goes, I don't know, that the same morning or whatever, they're in front of the deities and greeting the deities, and Prabhupada, and the devotee said, Prabhupada, what do you pray for in front of the deities? Prabhupada said, I pray that I'll never fall down. And the devotee said, well, that's why Prabhupada won't ever fall down, because he's always praying to Krishna, he'll never fall down. The point being is how advanced is Srila Prabhupada, and he's praying, because he's meek and humble. The devotee is always thinking, you know, very, very meek and humble. Yeah, I'm simply existing by the grace and mercy of my spiritual master and Krishna. So he's not thinking, oh, I'm very, very, very advanced. He wants to be careful. That's that story of Mushika Bhava. You know the story of Mushika Bhava? Again, become a mouse? Purna, again, Mushika Bhava. You know the story? You know the story about again become a mouse? Have you heard that one yet? About the yogi who's meditating? He's just sitting there meditating, trying to just meditate. And a little mouse comes up. Hey, Maharaj, you got to help me out. He said, what's the problem? He said, there's a cat. This cat's chasing me. And I'm getting harassed by this cat. Can you help me out? And the yogi said, what do you want me to do? So can you turn me into a cat? He said, I can turn you into a cat. Poof! And the mouse got turned into a cat. He said, wow, this is far out. So the cat says, thank you, Maharaj. You know, he says, Maharaj, thank you. And he runs off. And the next day, the cat comes screeching into the ashram. Meow! What's the problem? What's the problem? He says, I got dogs chasing me now. He said, what do you want me to do? Can you turn me into a dog? He said, I can turn you into a dog. Thank you very much. And he runs off. And a day or two goes by, and guess who shows up again? The dog comes screeching into the ashram. He says, Maharaj, you got to help me. He says, what's the problem now? He says, his lions are chasing me. He says, what do you want me to do? He said, can you make me a lion into a lion? And the yogi goes, okay. Poof! And the dog turns into a big lion. He's just sitting in front of the sage. He doesn't say thank you. He just looks at the sage, and then he starts licking his chops. Sadhu burger. Looks very good. The sadhu said, what'd you just say? Sadhu burger. He said, no. Punar Mushika Bhava. Again become a mouse. Poof! He became a mouse and ran off. So the point is that the mouse is thinking, oh, I'm so big, I'm so important. I'm better than my guru. I can eat my guru. So what happened to him? Again, he became a mouse. Everything was lost. So one has to be very, very careful. Always remember where everything is coming from. It's coming from Guru and Krishna. And to be very, very humble. And, sometimes people would ask Prabhupada, oh, Maharaj, Swami Maharaj, can you speak from the 10th canto, Rasa Lila? And Prabhupada would refuse. Prabhupada would refuse. And there's one story there in the Lilamrita where the person kept pushing and pushing, and Prabhupada said, you may be so advanced that you can hear, but I am not so advanced. That was Prabhupada's answer. It was that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had 2.5 intimate associates, or 3.5? 3.5 intimate associates that he would hear the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Otherwise, it's the kirtan, and prasadam, and basic philosophy. Big people like Ramananda, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and who is that? Prakashananda Saraswati. Just Vedanta and philosophy and Gita. Very just, he had thousands and thousands and thousands of followers, but only 3.5. The half was Sikhi Mahiti's sister. Like that. So there's Ramananda Roy, Sub Damodar. Who were the ones? Ramananda Roy, Sub Damodar, Sikhi Mahiti and his sister. Those are 3.5. Otherwise, these things are so exalted, so one approaches them very, very, very carefully. Like that. So, and the Bhagavatam should be approached like that. Prabhupada says, no, not one word. So that's why how Prabhupada set up very carefully, day by day, we go through the Bhagavatam verses like that, and like that, become purified, so we can understand who is Krishna. Like that. Just like I remember, was it? His name's escaping me right now. Param Brahma. Remember Param Brahma? He lived here. He's Pran Govinda now? He's initiated? Guru? Sannyasi?
He was initiated before Bhagavan.
Yeah. That's... Oh, really? Okay, how long is that? Well, it's... Okay, so Pran Govinda? That's a nice name, Pran Govinda. Anyways, when he was here, his family members, I guess, dealt with jewelry and so on. So he went to learn how to be a jeweler and deal in jewels. So he had to be trained how to identify jewels and precious stones. Otherwise, you get cheated, right? You just cut glass or this or that. So you have to know what the gem is. You have to be trained. So in the same way, if you don't have that training, you're easily cheated and you make all kinds of mistakes and so on. So in the exact same way, what a precious gem Krishna consciousness is, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and everything. But if you're not trained, we mistake it for something mundane. That's the main point here. We mistake it for something mundane. One has to be very, very careful. That which is the highest transcendental reality, we consider to be something mundane. So just like thinking that a most valuable stone, jewel, is just a piece of glass. You just like that. So let's be careful. So there's a few thoughts on today's verse. I don't know if you want to add anything about the Gopi Bhava Club and what Prabhupada, how Prabhupada said about that and dealt with it personally.
Yeah.
The Gopi Bhava Club, I think that name was the name they gave it, actually. It was started by one devotee, I won't name names, and it developed after the CC was produced. Every time a new book would come out, actually, there was a change in consciousness. And the fourth canto came out. You have, Dhruva, and you have Paranjan. There's a whole thing.
Pila Dev.
Yeah. Fifth canto. Oh my God, I have to accept this. So when the CC came out, all of a sudden, basically, it was a sea change. Suddenly, wow, we're privy to. I mean, I remember working on the chapters, because there was this marathon. And Hayagriva was let go, kind of, and they needed another editor, so they had a contest, because we had Devamrita, Das Brahmacharya at that time, Srikanta, Sureshwara. There were several who could probably, who had some chops. But I'd been editing for a while, so we had a test, and I won the test. So I got to edit 4 or 5 chapters in the 5th canto and 4 chapters in the Anjalila. So right away, I'm like working on BTG articles. That was my editing, and then suddenly I'm doing Anjalila, which is the most intimate, part of the thing. I said, wow, 2 years in the movement. But there it was. So going through, and when it was finally published and all the devotees had it, suddenly some of the devotees they were studying, they're reading, and they're looking at NOD and especially CCs, especially Chapter 8, Madhya-lila, Ramananda Roy's Samvad, and they said, well, look, our whole mission here, internal, is to become a servant of the gopis. It wasn't to become Krishna. It was to become like the mood of the Tulsi Puja. The Tulsi Puja was the most favorite ceremony after a while, and because you're begging to become a servant of Tulsi and Manjari, basically. Anyway, so the Gopi Bhava Club, how did it manifest? There was at that time the Spanish BBT was located in L.A. And so this devotee was working with the Spanish BBT, and so a lot of those devotees joined in. They not necessarily only speak Spanish, but they worked. So and it manifested in reading the CC together, but only certain parts of the CC. So I said, so I was into reading the CC, so I came for maybe 3 or 4 sessions. But what happened was that because they weren't so pure, it got into a thing like, we have the nectar, you don't have the nectar. We have the nectar, but the leaders are just, giving us all of this rudimentary stuff, and they're not preaching this, and they should be doing this and this thing. So it became a combative thing. It became kind of a little cultish thing. And I didn't want any part of that. I was ready to sit down and read the CC anytime, So I dropped out, thank God. But it became a threat, because they were talking about the leaders of the whole movement, aren't doing. This is what Prabhupada wants. It's right in his books, So Prabhupada came. It was 76, the last visit to L.A. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj flew in. They had this morning walk where they laid out what was going on with the Gopi Bhava Club. They exaggerated a little bit, but that's what I heard later. Anyway, then they had a meeting. The meeting you're recalling, and Prabhupada was furious because he saw that this was a threat to his movement. And one of the things was that the famous saying came out: first deserve, then desire. You have a premature aspiration for these intimate things. Another thing that came out was that, look, there's all kinds of. Because Prabhupada was a farmer, he was into pharmaceuticals, so there's all kinds of medicines. You have to take the medicines according to what the doctor prescribes. You can't decide, I'm going to take this, take this, take this. You get, So the prescription is, as Prabhupada made it very clear, go step by step by step. And after that, no one would even pick up the CC, especially the green books. You remember you had the red was the Adi Leela, Majja was blue binding kind of, and the green was the Anti Leela. No, it was But I mean, certain devotees practically never recovered from that. There was a few of the ringleaders, you know, who like were just blasted away, you know. I mean, personally, and it was just it was scary. Even not being there, but hearing what happened was very scary. So, but one other little note about the last verse of the Nectar of Instruction. Now, that Nectar of Instruction was bouncing around in manuscript for a long time. And everything was in BBTLA, you know. So I got a hold of that manuscript and I read it before it was even published. And I remember distinctly reading in the last verse the commentary. Now, it could be Prabhupada's way of writing and dictating, you know. But what says now, if you read that purport, is that therefore, and the whole thing is about the importance of residing on the bank of the Radhakund. So therefore, residing on the bank of the Radhakund and bathing every day, it says, is a most important aspect of devotional service. Of course, you know, high, but what it originally said was the most important. And some devotees who read that, who got a hold of that manuscript, there was one devotee named Radhakund Richard. Did you ever hear of Radhakund Richard? He was instrumental. He had been a big Madison Avenue executive in New York, you know,
Okay.
and he got involved with devotional service. He helped them get that Brooklyn temple. He gave a big donation and everything, you know. It's a history that's not so known. And I remember when I was living in that temple, it was probably 74, when he showed up, and, you know, he wanted to stay there, because he was, I think it was, I didn't know this at that time, but he was on his way planning to go to live at Radhakund. And all he wanted to do all day was just chant Hare Krishna and circumambulate Tulsi. And I don't know if you ever spent any time in that Brooklyn temple, but we had this gallery where there were all these paintings, because, you know, the artists were there and everything. They did the plays there.
You mean Henry Street?
Henry Street.
Oh, yeah.
Henry Street.
Yeah.
So I remember I would go up, and he had the Tulsi there, because, you know, he was like royalty, and he could do whatever he wanted. So he was always walking around, you know, all day, you know, chanting Hare Krishna, probably chanting 64 rounds, you know. And then we didn't see him anymore, and he had gone off to Radhakund. And he never got initiated. He never got initiated by Prabhupada anyway. But he became known as Radhakund Richard. You know, people would go and see him, you know. And eventually he came back. He wrote this book, a compilation of stuff about the holy name. But he never really integrated back into ISKCON. He had all these other ideas and everything, you know. But he was someone who actually apparently read that purport and saw, well, I got to go to Radhakund. But it doesn't really work if you're not ready for it. You know, we had another thing with this right here. In 75, the Govardhan, I don't know if you were here at the time, probably not. You were in Boston.
No, Boston.
Yeah, I was in LA. There was a Govardhan Puja festival here in the Third and Thorn, you know, and they would go into the park,
Yeah, the big
you know,
one, okay.
and big pandals and everything. And Prabhupada was there. He came for that. And I remember couldn't all fit into that temple, so we were kind of milling around. And there was somebody dressed as a Babaji, you know, who had come. Who was that? Oh, that's Adulomi. Adulomi. He was from Detroit, and he was an initiated devotee, and he had told Prabhupada, I have this heart
he came
disease.
To Boston. He came through the Radha
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have this heart. The
Babaji.
doctors say I only have so many months to live, you know, so I want to take Babaji. So Prabhupada gave him Babaji. So all he did was chant. Chant. And then eventually he went to Mayapur, and he was chanting. And he was, you know, didn't stay so much in the temple. There was not much built up at that time. He would be seen near the Ganges. He had a little kutir or something. And then no one saw him after a while. And it turned out, you know, he went to the doctor there and said, well, no, you don't have this, not a terminal. You know, you can get cured. And he was, boom, he disappeared. You know, nobody saw him again. Once he found out he wasn't going to die, you know. So it's dangerous to rush ahead without step-by-step becoming pure.
There's a saying in Christianity, don't be more Catholic than the Pope. So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.